Okay, Mark Zuckerberg just published a 6,500 word essay called The Future is for Everyone. It's a rare essay for Zuck to come out in public and publish something like that. The pitch basically is that just everyone should get their own personal super intelligent AI agent, either free or close to it, instead of the most powerful AI staying locked inside just a handful of companies. He takes direct shots at Dario Amodei in this essay, criticizing his entire safety philosophy, calling the idea that only a tightly controlled few companies should hold this power as inherently problematic. And he warns that trusting in absolute power to be benevolent has never worked out well historically. Although Zuck does make some valid points in this argument, he also is full of contradictions. So I'd like to go through it and take a look at his shots that he takes at Dario. Let's get into it. So this is his essay, The Future is for Everyone, The Path to a Positive AI Future. Overall, it's a very optimistic essay on what the AI future is going to look like. And Zuckerberg basically just tells the world not to worry, that AI is going to be really good, and that, of course, there are safety issues, but we'll be able to get around them. The first thing that he says here is individual empowerment as the source of prosperity, invention as the primary purpose of superintelligence, and balance of power as the foundation of safety. So that's the whole philosophy that he has all summed up. So let's look at this again. 1, individual empowerment as the source of prosperity. So he's saying that each individual should have access to AI, not companies, not governments, the individual person. 2, invention as the primary purpose of superintelligence. Okay, that's perfect. That's exactly what superintelligence should be used for, is invention, is creating new things, is innovating, making things better. So he's saying that that is the purpose of AI, not for, I guess, mass surveillance or for military action or things like that. And 3, he's saying balance of power as the foundation of safety. So he says that, like a competitive economy, you should have many people and many organizations controlling many AI agents that compete with each other, creating this kind of equilibrium of equality, rather than having one hegemon that is just going to dominate the playing field. So that's his philosophy. And here's where he takes his first shot at Dario Amodei. It is surprising that the discourse from many developing AI is so filled with doom. He says specifically, I do not understand why anyone who believes that AI will eliminate most jobs and much of humanity's relevance would rush to build that future. If you haven't been following recently, Dario Amodei has come under a lot of fire for his negativity around AI recently, which is kind of funny because a few years ago he dropped an essay called Machines of Loving Grace, in which he was saying that the world is too negative on AI right now. The world needs to be much more excited about the positivity that it's going to bring. So he came out with that in 2024. And then in 2026, just earlier this year, he comes out with The Adolescence of Technology, which is another essay kind of taking the exact opposite frame of, hey, the world is a little bit too optimistic about AI now. Let's pull it back and realize that, yes, AI is very dangerous still, and that we need to really get this right, or else it could be devastating for humanity. Which is an interesting flip-flop that Dario has made from 2024 of being the optimist to 2026 of being the pessimist. And right now it seems like he is kind of outnumbered in his pessimism. All the other major AI companies have seem to be very much on the acceleration of AI and don't want regulation as much and want to go as fast as possible. Dario is saying, let's slow down, let's go as safe as possible. An interesting flip-flop. And I think that maybe part of that is the fact that Anthropic is now in the lead of AI, which was not the case a couple years ago. But that's for another video. Regardless, here is Zuck directly aiming at Dario, since, again, Dario is like the only negative AI person right now that's kind of the AI doomer in him. Why anyone who believes that AI will eliminate most jobs and much of humanity's relevance would rush to build that future? It's a good point. Why would someone do that? And it's actually a little bit of a zinger against Dario. I'll give Zuck that one. The notion that AI is so dangerous that the only safe path is the extreme concentration of power seems inherently problematic. Historically, hoping that let me get my thing on here to be able to highlight. Historically, hoping that an absolute power will be benevolently provide for humanity if sufficiently enlightened has not led to safe or positive outcomes. And he gives examples of this, like, yeah, obviously you don't want big governments to take over and be the ones in power. Here's where he talks about invention and not automation will be the greatest contribution of superintelligence. So that's another big point that he makes. And then he also talks here about, here's all the things that Meta are doing, okay, blah, blah, blah. Some of it's kind of interesting, but it doesn't really matter too much. It's just company-specific stuff about how Meta is going to align with that philosophies. This one I did think was interesting. We will offer free versions that will be accessible to billions of people. So actually, let's backtrack before we get there. I think I missed a part. Because part of his foundational argument is that he believes that we need to place the power of AI within everybody's hands. So make AI free or close to free and as abundant as possible. And that as everyone gains more powerful tools here, each person will become more capable of shaping the future, not less. Great. So AI is for everyone, right? That's even, the future is for everyone. That's the name of the essay. Give AI to everybody, right? Because AI for everybody, if every country in the world has a nuclear weapon, then it's a kind of no individual country can be bullied. Each one of them has the power to defend itself. If everybody in a room has a gun, then if there's a mass shooter that comes out, everybody can defend themselves, rather than only some people have the gun and then you just trust the people. Okay, only that guy's got a gun. He's not going to shoot me. Hopefully. That's Zuck's whole argument, which has some credence to it, but also it's not super strong. But here's where he says something that directly contradicts himself. We will offer free versions that will be accessible to billions of people. For those who want to pay to use more compute, there will be a dynamic auction mechanism that will guarantee that everyone gets the lowest price possible, blah, blah, blah. Who want to pay to use more compute? Who want to pay to use more compute? So he's saying that there's still going to be a hierarchy of AI, right? You only get the AI if you're willing to pay for it. So the people that pay the most will still be able to just outpay somebody that can't afford that much. Okay, so here's an example that he has. Imagine only one person had a super intelligent lawyer. They would have an unfair advantage in court, even if they were wrong on the merits. That would lead to a worse society. But now imagine everyone has a super intelligent lawyer. In this case, justice would be carried out more fairly and efficiently than it is today, when there is often an imbalance of skills and resources in litigation. Seems like that would be good. But let's go back to what we just read here. We will offer free versions that will be accessible to billions of people. And then, for those who want to pay to use more compute, they can. So, this sounds really good, but then you realize that there's just going to be some people that can get the free base super intelligent lawyer, and then people who want to pay more for higher uses of compute can get an even more intelligent lawyer. Or even if it's not necessarily more intelligent, they pump more compute into it at a much higher rate, and the output is much stronger. So ultimately, what you're doing here by making superintelligence for everyone is it's superintelligence for those who can pay for it. And it's shifting the disparity from AI companies that are the big winners from the AI race to it's actually the compute companies. So whichever company is getting paid, so that way you can use all of their GPUs to run that superintelligent lawyer. So maybe the AI company just produces one superintelligent lawyer. It's that same basic model that everybody gets to use. Great idea. But then you can use it at different rates depending on your compute. And so it's just shifting resources is all it's doing. So pretty big contradiction, in my opinion. He continues on with some other points throughout the essay, talking about job growth in the economy, and basically says that the economy, that we won't have to worry about losing jobs because we'll actually have more jobs in the future rather than less, simply because essentially just the age-old argument of technology brings new jobs. For example, first line here, there is no rule that AI must increase automation faster than it increases individuals' capabilities or demands for new skills. It may be more likely that individuals' capability growth could match or outpace automation, in which case people will gain the ability to do many new things before their current jobs change. I don't disagree with that. It's a possibility, but it seems very optimistic. More likely than not, automation is going to happen much faster than new jobs arise, much faster than people can reskill, and much faster than they can learn new skills. But maybe if we're lucky, there will be an abundance of jobs in the future. No matter how intelligent AI becomes, there will always be a finite amount of compute, and therefore an opportunity cost of how we use it. If people can use AI to invent incredibly valuable new things, then it will make more sense to allocate it towards that rather than automating existing jobs. Again, I don't think that there will be such a restriction on compute that we can't do essentially both. Especially if AI models get small enough and efficient enough to use a tiny amount of compute, and we continue this massive compute build out that we're doing. I just don't think that that's a very likely outcome, to be totally honest. I mean, it's not wrong. I think it's true. It's just unlikely that this will be the case. This is one thing that I do think is definitely going to happen, though, and is already happening, is it implies a larger amount of number of companies with fewer people each. There are many more valuable companies, services to build than people are able to build today. Fully believe that. There is a ton of open opportunity out there of more value and demand in the world than there is supply. That's why things cost money. And so we are going to have to build more, and AI is going to have that happen. And it's going to be a lot more like one-person companies. I mean, that's already happening, of tons of people building massive projects. And something that I try to do as well is just build own companies without having any employees, and it just is a one-person company all on me. My employees are just AI agents because I don't need people. And that's going to become a much more common thing. But it's not a zero-sum game. It's going to increase the overall size of the pie. It's not going to, cut the pie into smaller slices for employees. So yes, company sizes are going to shrink. There's going to be a lot more companies, and a lot more of just one-person companies or very few people companies. And I think that's also part of building your personal brand nowadays, of just have a following or something like that. That can be your company option. Then he talks about building AI infrastructure with communities, and he just circle jerks himself about how great his jerks himself. He just talks about how great Meta is, basically, and how they're such a good company in helping the community, securing against AI misuse and cybersecurity, bioterrorism, and more. So on this, he says basically that cybersecurity the AI needs to go faster, so that way the cyber attacks can never catch up to the cybersecurity. If the good guys are always in the lead, going faster than the bad guys, then they can never be passed. If in theory, if you have a super intelligent hacker, an AI hacker that is super intelligent, well, you should also have an even more super intelligent defensive cybersecurity AI agent that can defend against it. So you should just always keep that faster. On cybersecurity, widely deployed open source systems have proven more secure because more people can identify vulnerabilities, harden the systems, and easily upgrade to the latest, most secure versions. This is him talking about just open source again. He brings up that Hugging Face attack by OpenAI, and how it had to rely on an open Chinese model in order to defend itself against the attack. I don't think that this is actually a legitimately very strong argument against open source. I think it's more just a facet of the current system, is that current models are a little bit too restrictive, at least American closed models, and the Chinese models are very open. And so it just means that I think companies in America are going to have to be a little bit, or work with AI companies are going to have to work with actual companies on cybersecurity, but it's not a major win for open source. I think it looks much more like a win for open source than it actually is. But of course, Mark is going to frame it that way since he's the open source guy. And yeah, he says basically we shouldn't worry about it too much, and that if we need to worry about it, if we begin to see harmful examples emerge, then we should adjust our strategy. Yeah, that might be a little too late, but hopefully not. Over the long term, the answer to risks arising from new scientific discovery will be to accelerate scientific progress, not slow down. That's what I was saying earlier. And it's just another point for Zuck to be an accelerationist. Well, maybe not the best thing. Next section, protecting freedom and preventing government tyranny. We all want individual freedom while also having a government capable of keeping us safe. So how do we keep those two desires in alignment? Well, he says that we're going to have a fully private mode, but that government should be allowed to basically have all of our data there. Ensuring American leadership. This is one of the more interesting sections that he wrote about, because it's saying, how does America stay in the lead? And again, of course, it feeds into his accelerationist argument. But he said the best way to achieve this is to distribute our systems widely, again, with the open source models, delivering them to billions around the world, which maybe we do need to do. We need to be the open source leader. AI is likely to be the most competitive industry in history. I thought that was interesting and probably true, because there are so many companies sprouting up doing AI. But people always want to use the most advanced models. So this is something that I think is interesting, because it's definitely true right now. It's definitely true that OpenAI and Anthropic have an outsized source, or an outsized share of the market, because they are the best models in the world. But if models continue getting better and better, at a certain point, isn't intelligence enough? Is that going to happen? I'm not positive on this, but it feels like it might be true. That right now I want to use OpenAI and Anthropic because they're agents for controlling my computer and telling them to do so many tasks within my computer. Those are the only agents that are really capable of doing it at a high clip. And if I want to use an open source model or a cheaper model or some other company's model, well, I'm going to have to go through a lot more bugs and issues to get what I actually want done. But at a certain point, like there's going to be tons of AI intelligence that can do all the things that I want it to do. It can do all the grocery shopping for me, and all of the coding for me, and all of the organizational admin managerial things for me. And like, that's all the intelligence that I need. I'm not trying to cure cancer. Like, that's not my business. And even if I did want that, it would probably require even more intelligence than is openly available by the top models. So I don't know that this is always going to be the case, that people always want to use the most advanced models. Is that always going to be the case? Certainly there will be a demand for the most advanced models for certain things, but will the general public always want that? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, for now, maintaining even a small advantage is incredibly valuable. Yeah, that's theory. So basically, he just says that we need to completely not regulate at all. Here's another interesting line. Expert controls in silicon have been successful for slowing the progress of foreign labs during this critical period, which is very interesting because Jensen Huang is very anti that, of course, because he's the one exporting to China. And so Mark is taking a little bit of a shot at Jensen there, saying like, no, we should not be exporting our silicon, our GPUs to China. And I actually disagree. I don't think that is correct. I think that Jensen's actually right there, that we probably want these companies building on our American infrastructure, because then we can cut them off whenever we really need to, rather than them forging their own industry and being non-reliant, because China is going to get there on having GPUs of similar quality to NVIDIA soon. Anyways, any policy that slows American models releases, even by a month, could be a significant threat. This is, again, just his acceleration, this argument. And so here's something interesting, is that he proposed a collaboration model between many different AI companies, which would be a really interesting thing to happen if let's say if the China-America AI race comes up so fast and so hard that America goes all in on, we need to be number one here or else it's an existential crisis. And it doesn't matter individual companies. This is about America here, and we just combine essentially all of our top researchers, all of our top people into a government program that creates AI. And then you don't have privatized companies at all. It's just all a government company. Anthropic, OpenAI merger, essentially, and all the smaller companies as well. I mean, Mark is not proposing that, of course, but he's proposing just having some sort of collaboration between frontier labs and the government, which, by the way, is another contradiction within what he's saying, because he's saying, okay, so the government should be involved in the frontier labs and the creation of these collaborative models, but at the same time, future is for everyone, right? Like, so everybody should have access to the models, but probably all the really most advanced modern state models should be collaboratively built with the government, so that way the government has control over them and can use them. He does talk about the foreign labs holding advantages, basically the power grid advantage that China has, which is true. And also he talks about how distillation is another shot at Dario here. He says, some have tried to frame distillation as harmful, but I think it is important to protect the principle that you can learn from anything you can observe. Wow, what a white knight Mark Zuckerberg is. He's just taking a shot at Dario here, because Dario is famously very against distillation that China has been doing to his Claude AI models. Because famously, China can create these AI models just by distilling from Claude, and makes it 99% as good, or maybe 95% as good, but at a fraction of the cost to produce. And Mark's saying, nah, that's fine, you can do it, because he's probably distilling as well, because he maybe knows that Meta isn't going to ever be the frontier lab. If they ever do reach that point of being frontier lab, in which case his models are being distilled, then he's probably going to have a very different opinion on that. But all of this together, align with the people and addressing existential risk, blah, blah, blah. Most dangerous scenario would be AIs training powerful models and keeping them for themselves. We view alignment as ensuring that agents share a personal goal and value, not our company, which I think is maybe his strongest argument in the whole thing, is that, alignment is, to a certain degree, personal. Who decides what alignment is? If it's one company that's just deciding all the morals for the rest of humanity, that seems very sketchy. If we look at our modern human society, obviously there's many different morality perspectives from many different countries. And some of them, look very, very bad, but from their perspective, we look really, really bad here in America. And so distilling or instilling American ideals onto the rest of the world through AI intelligence is kind of similar to all the freaking colonization. If we want to get really woke here, the colonization in the 1600s, 1700s, coming and civilizing the natives and telling them this is Christianity, this is the how to be a civilized human being, and this is what you need to do. These are the morals you need to follow. So we probably want to be careful against doing that to a certain degree. And I think that that's actually a pretty strong argument for Mark, that we need to view alignment at a personal level and not at a company's level. There shouldn't be a universal truth for morality and alignment. But although I think there should be maybe a few things that are universally true, like, hey, this AI model shouldn't harm humans, something like that. Finally, maintaining control of superintelligence. Just talks about alignment again. There's nothing too interesting there. and then again talks about just kind of summarizing what it is. But in conclusion, he's saying, and this is something that is a little bit inspiring, this is an incredible moment to live through. Developing superintelligence will be the most profound technological advance we will ever see in our lifetimes. And I think that that is probably true, and I hope it is true, and I hope that it ends up good, because it could end up very, very bad, or it could be the best thing in history. So obviously, Mark's opinion is very biased based off of the current circumstances of Meta and being the open source company as it is trying to frame itself. And so he's trying to make arguments for why open source is better, and some of it is good, some of it is not so good. And he's very diametrically opposed with Dario. It seems like all the top AI leaders right now are very opposed to Anthropic. But a lot of that maybe is because Anthropic is the leader in AI right now. And so they are trying to slow them down, or kind of steal their thunder, or distill their models maybe. There's a lot of different things that are going on. But that's it. Okay, bye.